Hello. Welcome to our Friday Career Accelerator Q&A. We're going to get started, just waiting for things to load up. We'll take a few quick moments as this is getting all set up over here. All right, I think we are officially live on Instagram. Let's see if we are live on LinkedIn right now, as well as YouTube. Happy Friday, everybody. It's great to have you here. I'm just going to give a quick moment to make sure that everything is live. Okay, I think we are rocking and rolling. A happy Friday and a happy Thanksgiving to all those celebrating. And thank you for spending a little bit of time with me today. It's great to have you here. If this is your first time joining our weekly Career Accelerator Q&A, welcome. My name is Tiffany. I am a CEO and career coach, and we love empowering you to unlock higher levels of career growth and impact in your career. And so we try to come together ideally once a week, normally every Friday, to answer your questions and be able to support you in what you're working through right now. There's no such thing as stupid questions here. We just want to make sure that you have practical guidance that you can apply right now in your career, in your life, that will make a huge difference in setting you up for a lot of success. So if that sounds good to you, then definitely stick around. We are streaming across Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube right now. So please do choose the platform that is best for you and where you feel most comfortable asking your questions. Always great to spend this time together. Hello to everyone joining us over on Instagram right now, as well as on LinkedIn. I'm going to just pop open our chat to make sure I don't miss any questions. But please feel free to drop in any questions that you have. Again, no matter where you're at right now in your career, any challenge you're working through, maybe you're looking to navigate a conflict in your workplace or how to have that end of year conversation around your career goals, or maybe you're transitioning into a new opportunity and needing further support with that. So please don't be shy. This is your time with me to work through all of that together. And I know it might be a little quieter today with the Thanksgiving holiday, but all good. I still wanted to pop in right here. I won't be able to do our weekly lives for the next couple of weeks, but we'll kick back here middle of December and make sure we're closing out the year strong. Can't believe we're already end of November. Time is flying. But maybe just to kick things off for everyone who is joining us live right now, let me know in the chat or in the comments, what is one challenge that you're working through right now that you'd like some more help on? If you had to kind of nail it down to one thing, what is that right now? We can keep that going. I'm going to go back to some of the questions we got ahead of time. Let me just make sure again here that I'm got everything here on the background, but I think we are good to go. Okay, perfect. So yes, please don't be shy. Let me know. I mean, we've gotten some good questions earlier this week around communicating better with senior leaders and executives in your company. I seem to be getting a lot of questions around that. And so I can definitely share some practical tips that you can apply for your workplace, because having those relationships with your leaders intact is so important. I think let's take it a step back, because often the feedback I get from our community, from our clients when it comes to this is, well, I'm a little bit intimidated to do that, or I don't even know where to start in having those conversations with my senior leaders. Or it can even come down to, well, what value do I bring? Like, they're the top of the top. They know everything going on in the company. So what would talking to me do for them? What kind of value will they see in that? And so the key piece that I want to remind you of, and that's really going to help you feel confident and empowered in having those conversations with your senior leaders, is this. And that's remembering that you are the closest person to your area of the business. Okay. And so what I mean by that is, your senior leaders, they might be very experienced. They might have been around the block. They might have seen a lot in their career within the company, but you're still the person who's closest to your area of the business, meaning that they're kind of counting on you to share insights with them, share information with them, share updates with them tied to what you're working on. And they might not have, they probably likely don't have that level of granular detail that you can bring them. And so that is value, especially if what you have to share is in line with the goals that they have and the priorities that they've set for your department or the larger company, right? And so try thinking of it in that way to have that mindset shift and confidence boost in the value that you bring in speaking with your senior leaders. That's like step one. Step two is how you actually communicate with them. And less is more, always. Okay. You don't want to overly share information that can open up a can of worms and then leave you going down a really dangerous rabbit hole because senior leaders and executives are typically pretty sharp. They're thinking a few steps ahead. And if you give them too much to go off of, they might actually go down this path when you really wanted them to go down this path. And so, what you want to do, and my pro tip that works like a charm, is always have in mind your top three messages. Okay, so this is going to shift as you change in your role from 1 month to the next, from 1 week to the next. But chances are there's three key things that are really notable for you to share or speak about should you come into contact with one of your senior leaders. And that could be tied to a project. It could be tied to a recent win that you've had. It could be tied to part of the work that you're leading for your team. But there's likely going to be three takeaways, three messages that when those moments happen, and even impromptu moments, you're able to speak to this and think on your feet really quickly. The last thing you want to do is be in a one-on-one meeting or a conversational, like in the hallway type of meeting with a senior leader and miss that golden opportunity to shine. This is going to help you feel a lot more equipped with knowing what you want to say, how you want to say it, and capitalizing on those moments as they happen. Okay. So try to keep that in mind and always with the notion of less is more. That's why I'm saying narrow it down to those three messages. They might ask you other things, they might share additional insights or build off of what you're sharing, but you want to really lead that. You want to set the tone and show that you kind of have ownership in your role and that you can be confident in thinking on your feet in that way. So that's a really easy strategy that you can use day in and day out. And maybe just as another quick tip in speaking effectively to your senior leaders, especially more in like a meeting setting, probably one of my favorite tips is whatever you're presenting, okay? If it's a presentation, update, an approval, whatever it is, you're obviously going to have likely prepared that ahead of time. But instead of just waiting to deliver that for the first time in that meeting with those senior leaders, you're going to want to pre-vet that. What I mean by this is before that meeting even happens, you're likely going to want to speak with other leaders or decision makers in your department or in your division that will possibly be in that meeting with you or have some level of influence on the rollout of whatever that decision is going to be. And that way, you're giving yourself the chance ahead of time, ahead of speaking to those ultimate decision makers and senior leaders, to get other people's input, get their objections, get their feedback, get their pushback. That way, you can actually work that in to your dialogue. You can work that into your conversation. You can work that into your meeting prep so that when you do actually show up in that meeting, not only are you feeling way more confident, with the right less is more messages, but you've already factored in multiple perspectives so that you can deliver that with a lot of conviction and commitment. And even in those moments, let's say where you're getting a follow up question from your CEO, as an example, you can even drop it that you've pre vetted some of this, right? So you could say something like, that's a great question. In fact, that was a key consideration I had as well. And that's also why I spoke with so and so on the team to get a better sense of how they would roll that out with their team. And the feedback they shared was this, which is why I've recommended it in this way. So even just showing that ultimately comes off super confident and like you know your stuff, you're on top of your game. And again, you're capitalizing on those communication moments. So those are definitely some top of mind pointers. I hope it's helpful. Some great questions coming through on that this week and how to communicate more effectively with your senior leaders. So please be sure to adopt those strategies and set you up for a lot of success. Okay. All right, guys, thanks so much also for joining today. It's great to have you here. Please do not be shy. We're taking all of your questions with where you're at in your career to help you unlock higher levels of growth and impact, get you into that next step, everything you deserve. We just want to put it all out there for you. There's a lot of information that you can be seeing out there that's confusing, and you might be wondering, well, what do I do? What's going to help me in my specific situation? And so that's our goal here, is to help you really identify based off of what you're going through right now, what the best path forward is. So please be sure to share what that is, what your challenges are right now, what your number one challenge is right now as we're kind of nearing year end, and we can work you through that together here. Okay, I think I saw a question come through from Miriam. What do you advise when someone is being asked a question that this person doesn't have an answer, but you want to have a conversation about it? Okay, so what do you advise when someone is being asked a question that this person doesn't have an answer, but you want to have a conversation about it? What you're probably going to want to do there, Miriam, is just buy yourself a little bit of time. If the question is, let's say, coming to you and you don't have information, but you're like, but I would like to talk about that, you obviously don't want to just blurt anything out and say the wrong thing, right? I have a nice golden rule of thumb for you on this when it comes to thinking on your feet in these moments. And something one of my bosses had told me along the way, and it just stuck with me in my time at L'Oreal. Okay, so I'm going to share it and then I'm going to go a little bit in more depth for your question. So, the thing to remember here is when asked a question and you don't necessarily have all the information, but you do want to have that conversation, ask yourself, or tell yourself this, I should say, that you'd rather be approximatively right than precisely wrong. Okay, you'd rather be approximatively right than precisely wrong. So, what I mean by this is, let's say, someone is coming to you with this question and you're like, okay, I don't have all the information, but I'm pretty sure it's around this. Like, I'm 85% confident in that. Go ahead and have the conversation. You're pretty close. But if, Miriam, you have like no clue and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm like deer in the headlights right now, I don't even know what to say, you probably want to go with option 2, which is what I'm going to share, and buy yourself a little bit of time. So that's where you could say something like, thanks so much for asking that question. I completely understand the importance of discussing that together. I would love to do a little bit more background research on my end, or I'd like to take a few moments to actually make sure I have the latest information to give you on that, as I haven't checked earlier today. Would it be all right if we schedule a time to talk about this at the end of today or tomorrow morning, whatever works on your schedule, right? So you're acknowledging, you're saying that you need to do something in terms of action step, maybe get more information, make sure it's the latest and greatest, all of that. And then you're suggesting a follow-up time. This is the best way to keep your credibility intact, not make it seem like you don't know what you're talking about, but also address the conversation when you feel most ready to have that conversation. Because otherwise, it can really backfire. Okay. And this actually works really well even in work meetings. If, let's say, you're being asked something and you're like, I actually don't have that information. If it's a quick thing to pull up on your computer and you have your computer with you in that meeting, go for it. You could say, is it all right if I take a few moments? I'd like to make sure I'm giving you the latest and greatest information on that, and I can just pull that up. And then they'll probably say, yeah, for sure. But if it's not such an easy fix for you, that's where you could say, that's an excellent question. Come to think of it, I want to make sure that I have the latest information. That will maybe take me a little bit of time following today's meeting, but I will absolutely get that to you by end of day today. Would you like me to share that by email with you? And then if you have any questions, you can let me know. And like that, again, you're following up with a clear action step. You're managing expectations, and you're not putting your foot in your mouth by saying the wrong thing or pretending like you have the answer. So hopefully that helps you, Miriam, in navigating that kind of situation. But it's a great opportunity to keep your composure and calm in those moments. Okay, great question. Oh, hey, Jeff, thanks for joining Fridays with Tiffany. I like it. Jeff joining us over from LinkedIn. Good to have you here. I hope you're having a great Friday and week as well. Okay, let's come back over. I think I saw another question come through from Instagram, so I'll bring that one up. It's from Ruhi Caps. I'm a career change professional turned into recruiter, and I quit my toxic job. I want to start on my own, but I'm scared what to do. Well, first off, Ruhi, and I hope that's the first name, and I'm pronouncing it well, so let me know. But I mean, good for you. Good for you for walking away from a workplace that was not serving you anymore. That takes a lot of courage. That takes a lot of boldness at times and prioritization of you and your health. But if that was taking a real toll on you, this is the step in the right direction. So I'm celebrating you right now, and I hope you're feeling that for yourself as well. It's also really exciting that you're thinking to make a change and go out on your own. I know that can feel scary. I felt that very similarly when I started my own business, transitioning away from my corporate career, which I absolutely loved. But I would say the most important thing most important thing that's going to push through those fears and push through that mindset of, should I do this? What if I fail? What if it doesn't work out? Is get super clear on your why. What is your why in building this thing on your own? Because that why is going to keep you so grounded in the highs and lows that you're going to face. And you have to be rooted in that. Okay. It can't just be, I want to do something on my own because it seems like the better option, or I just want to do something on my own to, be able to not have to have a boss anymore, whatever it is, right? Those could be reasons, but those aren't your why. The why is a lot deeper as to the type of impact you want to have through the business that you're choosing to build for yourself. So maybe you've had some reflection on that. Maybe this is all very fresh, but I would encourage you as you go into the weekend, Ruhi, to really think about, what is that why for you? How do you want to help people? What is the problem you're trying to solve? How can you make it easier for them? Right? And a lot of that could come from your own experience of what you've gone through and where you see gap areas, and really lean into that. And if you want as a really immediate next step, and again, I'm not sure what kind of business exactly you're thinking to do or what that venture might look like, but you ideally want to do your research, market research, and start small to test, right? So you can actually start working with beta clients as a starting point, or beta customers, and kind of get a feel out there of what you want to do and how you want to serve others is how they will want to be served and received as well. The best way to build that confidence at the beginning is to test and experiment as much as you can, and bring that back to your why. So, very happy to chat more about that, but hopefully that already gives you a good gauge of some of those immediate steps to think about and reflect on and get this off the ground. You could also pair that with some initial goals. Maybe you want to give yourself a goal of having, a certain number of beta clients by a certain timeline, or gain a certain learning or validation by a certain timeline, or whatnot. But try to keep your goals max to 3 at a time. You don't want to spread yourself thin. You don't want to get shiny object syndrome where I feel like I should do this, or then tomorrow I want to do that instead. You have to stay grounded and try to block out distractions. That's going to be really important, but very exciting for you as you're pursuing this next step. And if I can help in any other way, please let me know. For what it's worth, everyone who is joining, if you are looking for more hands-on, one-on-one dedicated support in your career to really unlock those higher levels of growth and impact for you and become the person you're meant to be and unlock that potential, my team and I would love to speak with you. You can actually book a call with us and we can chat more. I think it's a really timely moment of the year. If you're joining on Instagram, you could just comment call and I'll be able to share those details with you to book that in. If you're joining us from LinkedIn or YouTube or on LinkedIn, you could actually just book that call directly from my profile. So please don't hesitate. Would love to chat with you. Okay, let me see if I missed any. I think some other questions. This is great. We've got some good ones coming in today. So thank you guys. Let's keep it going. We have, I think, either a follow up from Miriam or another question. If an introvert person is in a role that requires him or her to be extroverted most of the time, what techniques can be used to flex and be able to have enjoyable conversations? Oh, yeah. I love this question, Miriam. I can say about more than 50% of our clients that we work with are introverts, and we focus a lot on communication strategy. I think being an introvert is amazing because you can actually build some really intimate conversations and connections with people. So my biggest advice when you're thinking of that, you have to be more extrovert, and there's different ways that that could come through, right? Maybe it's a role that requires presentations or meetings or whatnot. That's okay. But don't underestimate the importance of quality over quantity. I also worked with some incredible introverted leaders in my time at L'Oreal. And I can tell you, it wasn't about how much they said, it was about the quality of what they said. And when they spoke, people listened. And so there is actually a lot to be said about quiet confidence and having those right moments to shine without it having to feel like you're overtaking conversations. So if I were you, Miriam, I'd think about, going into these conversations, going into these meetings that might feel more extroverted for you, and consciously think about what can you contribute ahead of time. So that way when you're in those moments, you're not caught off guard. You know the types of points you want to share, you know the messages you want to pass, and you can instinctively find moments in those meetings to share that. And it's much more quality over quantity, right? It's about what you say and how you say it and the way that's delivered versus taking up every second of that conversation. I think another piece is sometimes just connection building, right? Because an extrovert has its pros, but being an introvert, I should say, has its pros too, right? So much of career success comes down to relationship building and the way you make people feel. And if you, Miriam, are consciously taking effort in building relationships, listening to people, actively listening, showing that you understand their reality, following up with conversations that show that level of understanding, they're going to feel really good about you. And then in those moments that are more extroverted, you just choose your battles. You pick the things that you want to say and when you want to say it. That's selective, but powerful, right? That's impactful. That's a really good way of thinking about it so that you're having an enjoyable conversation like you asked. It doesn't feel forced or disingenuous, but it also feels true to who you are, right? I think the biggest guidance I can share here, Miriam, is you never want to feel like you have to change who you are to fit into a workplace. If you're fundamentally changing that, it's not the right workplace for you. And so if you're more on the introverted side, this is where you can build those one-on-one relationships, work with more intimate conversations, smaller group conversations. And then in those bigger moments where you feel like it is more extroverted in nature, pick your battles and choose the right things to share and divulge that will help you with that. Okay. So I would say practice that a little bit. It might take a little bit of practice and building that muscle, but you can do so much good. I will tell you, I mean, just thinking of some of our recent introverted clients that we've supported, I mean, they've broke through some incredible barriers that they initially felt in their companies that was slowing down their promotions, that was stalling their growth, and they did complete 180s. And it was very much from a lot of what I'm sharing on building the right relationships, reinforcing those connections, and speaking up when it really matters with the right type of impact. Okay, love that question. We have another one here from Jad Merge. Thanks so much. I have a new director, my new manager, who joined the business, and they are not familiar with what my role and team that report into me really brings to the division and what I do. Oh, such a good question. I love this one. Okay, so you have that role to play to enlighten them. Okay. And this is important for anyone here who is having a new manager, team change, even new leadership. Okay. This can apply across the board, but you need to give them insight into what your team does, not just like the role and responsibilities breakdown, but also the historic context, because they're likely coming in with their vision. They might have pressure on their shoulders of like, I need to prove myself. I'm new here, especially if they're totally new to the company. This is a little different if they're switching from one department to another. But let's say, you can let me know, but let's say that they are actually new to the company, right? All the more reason that they probably feel like they need to prove themselves. So they have their vision, they have their goals, they have their mandate that they're being given. And so that's top of mind. So the best way you can approach this conversation with them, set it up as a one-on-one meeting, especially if you are the leader of your team and you're now reporting into this new director. And you could say, I really wanted to set up some time for us so that, as you're integrating into the new role, I'd love to get a sense of what your vision and priorities are. That way, myself and the team can best support you in that. And at the same time, I'd love to share some context of what's happened within the team over the last, 6 to 9 months, give you a little bit of historic context of some of the projects that we've led and the initiatives that we're working through right now. And I can also give you a really good breakdown of who does what and the way that we're supporting each of those team members respectively tied to their development goals. So like this, you're just taking charge. They're going to really appreciate that because you're helping them kind of get integrated faster, but you're also benefiting from it so that you're not leaving it to chance that things just fall through the cracks in that transition, because that can happen very easily when there's not these active conversations being had. So I would definitely recommend getting that on the calendar for you guys as soon as possible and taking charge of it. That's going to lead also to you building a really good allyship with this new director who will see you as someone who's helpful, who's insightful, who's a supportive partner. and wants to help them achieve the goals that they have for the department. Okay, so give that a shot. Let me know how it goes, but really, really excited for you. This is a good opportunity for you to make your mark with this new leader and also show your team that you're really backing them up. Okay. Some really good questions. I'm going to come back to some over here on Instagram. We got one over here on LinkedIn from Subhajit. I hope I'm pronouncing that well. Hi, Tiffany. I want to become an independent director from a project construction management background. I think I need to improve my confidence level to take that path. I'm about to complete a course on becoming an independent director. What advice can you give me at this moment? Well, first off, I think that's great that you're already taking some action steps and upskilling and learning what you might need from a more hard and technical skill standpoint. I will say, especially as you're looking to make that shift and when it comes to confidence, so much of it comes down to the soft skills as well. So please do not discount the importance of that. This is a lot of the work we do with our clients that just changes the game in their career growth and progression and achieving those goals faster. And so I would say you might want to, on the one hand, speak with someone or speak with people who have made that similar transition so that you learn from their experience and can use those insights to set you up for success as you're making this transition now. You're likely going to want to make sure your communication is well intact, right? If you are looking to move from where you're at to an independent director, right, that probably comes with a bit of an up leveling in your executive presence, in your communication, in the way that you are building credibility and authority in your tone of voice. So that could be a little bit of communication practice versus what you might have been used to doing up to now. And I think beyond that, it would also be deciding kind of your goal in moving towards more of this independent director type of role. What goals do you have short term and long term for that? And what skills do you feel you're missing to be able to deliver towards those goals? So part of it could be the upskilling like you're doing now, but as you're learning from people who are in that path, you're also going to get some other insights. So being able to build those short list of people who have already kind of done that path or are working through that path as well right now. It can build your network, but also give you a lot of insights of which skills you need to up level at this time. But I will say from a soft skill standpoint, it's likely a lot around communication, a lot around relationship building, probably a little bit around time management as well. So let me know, Subhajit, how you find you rank on those types of criteria. But that will definitely go a long way beyond the hard and technical skills. That's for sure. Yeah. Great question. Okay, let's come back. I think we had a few follow-ups here from Jan Merge, so I'm just going to take those real quick. So we answered that one already. I think it was a follow-up from the initial question, so I'll see if I've already addressed it. But you were saying, however, I do feel I may have something potentially working against me. My former manager was toxic, unethical, and highly critical in the end as I pushed back for the right reasons. I'm concerned that my new manager may have a preconceived judgment of me, my performance as a result, and want to start things off fresh and solid. Any advice on how to navigate and address the elephant in the room while also showcasing my unit role and strengths to someone new? Yeah. Okay. So everything I shared before, Jad Merge, fully applies here. I think the one thing you want to do is not go in assuming that your perception has been tainted. Okay. It's possible, but this is your opportunity to start anew. And I wouldn't want you bringing negative baggage from that former toxic relationship. Okay. I want you to go in setting a good tone. And you'll get a sense if your new manager feels a certain way about you just from how they respond. But I wouldn't go in assuming that they have like the dish on you and now they have that same perception. You can of course address some of the challenges that you had faced with, your prior manager where sometimes things weren't seen eye to eye and you're really excited about working under their leadership as you've heard great things and you really believe you can be a great support in what they're looking to achieve with the team, right? Build your allyship, build that connectivity with them and don't dwell on the relationship piece with your former manager. Rather, talk about the challenges that you might have faced under their leadership more matter of factly and bring it back to this person coming on and their leadership and how you're really excited to work with them. You've heard good things. You already have a really good sense of their style, and you simply want to make sure that you're helping them integrate as fast as possible, but also being a great support to them and your team. And then like that, you set the tone. We work on this actually quite a bit with our own clients around correcting that perception versus reality, because so much of this type of career progression and where we want to go, it's not just about feeling ready for that next step. It's a lot about the perceived readiness for that next step from those who make the decision. And so if you feel for you, Jan Merge, that it ran the risk that this former manager could have stood in your way or sabotaged something around your internal perception, that's okay. Now's the time to course correct. And I would say even beyond your direct new director, you probably want to do a little damage control with some other leaders in your company. I always refer to this as creating your cheer squad or your support system, right? Because your boss is very important, right? They're directly evaluating you, but there's other people in your company right now that have even more say around how you progress, how you evolve. Are you going to move into that next step or not, right? And so try to do a bit of a perception audit with these other leaders. And I'll give you a quick tip of how to do that for anyone that's in this situation. So if you're feeling at any one point that you're like, maybe they're not viewing me the way that I want to be viewed, I want to take control of that. Instead of just pretending things are perfect, let's make sure, Jan Merge, you're in the right spot. You got the right support. And so I would recommend identifying who those particular leaders or decision makers are and having a really informalized conversation. It could be like a coffee chat, a lunch, following up from a meeting that you have with them. And all you want to do is ask them something like this. I'd love to know, like, what is your perception of me in my work right now? Or, when you think of the work that I'm doing in the company, what are some ways that you would describe my impact? Or, are there certain things that you find that I can be doing, better in my role? These types of questions are really helpful. Sometimes painful to hear the answer because it's not always what you want to hear. But I will tell you, it's much better knowing those things and being able to action them than pretending they don't exist. Because guess what? Those people are still thinking that. They're just not telling you, and you're not giving them the opportunity to tell you. So I'm a huge advocate of feedback because now you can take that and you can run with it and show that you're open to learning and growing, which is so important. Okay. So hopefully that helps. Let me know. I'm going to keep going through some of the questions that we're getting here. Some really good ones today, guys. I know we had some that came through a little earlier, but I'm really loving the flow right here, right now. And Miriam, you're so welcome. I'm glad you found that helpful. Okay. So we have another one here, and then I'm going to come also to Paula that I see over on LinkedIn. So this is from Hippie Mean on Instagram. How do you improve on executive presence? Any advice? Oh yeah, definitely. Okay. Where do we start? Okay. Look, executive presence in large part is also a lot around your mindset and confidence level of how you show up. Okay. And this translates very much into how you come off towards other people, the communication that you have. And so as you're elevating yourself and your executive presence, you want to be heard, you want to be listened to, and you want to drive influence and mobilize action. Okay. So a few key facets here. The first is you definitely want to build your vision. Okay. When we're talking about building your executive presence, you definitely want to have a clear vision of what that looks like for you. Okay. And I'm not just talking about like a vision for a certain project. I'm talking kind of bigger picture vision for you in your role, creating a compelling vision that is forward thinking, right? That really inspires people to get behind you and follow your path, right? That's a big part of what this is all about. You don't want to stay in the tactics. You want to remove yourself and elevate yourself in the strategy side of things. The tactics could follow, but you need to point to that North Star. What are we working towards? Why is this important? Why does this matter? What are the types of outcomes we're working towards by doing this? Those are great ways to think about crafting that compelling vision for yourself. Another great way of building your executive presence is learning how to influence without authority. Okay? And so when we're talking about influencing without authority, this is where you're actually going to leverage skills like empathy to connect with people. Okay. So this can be really understanding what are their pain points in their department? Where are challenges that they're facing right now? How can you and your team best support them in that? When they feel really heard and understood, guess what? They're going to gravitate towards you. They're going to follow suit. They're going to buy into your vision because you're taking the time to support them. And that's a great way of influencing without being like a dictator or feeling like it's my way or the highway. So just leveraging empathy and showing that ability to understand with people, actively listen to them, and then build your strategies off of that understanding is going to go such a long way. And it will build a lot of support and collaboration towards you because they know that you actually care. I know this sounds like so obvious, right? You've probably heard the expression, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. One of my favorites, right? That's what this is all about. You need to show that level of care and attention. Okay. And I think another big piece of building your executive presence is aligning with your stakeholders that you're working with, but with storytelling, very effective storytelling. Okay. And so when we talk about storytelling, this is about knowing, again, your key messages, but also thinking with the end in mind. Okay. This is especially important when talking with executive leaders and building your executive presence. You don't want to just start messages and have it be run on and run on and run on. You have a goal, you have an end in mind. I need this. I want to get to that. I want to communicate this outcome. Then what you do is you work backwards. Okay. And so with that, you're going to be a lot more succinct, a lot more direct, and a lot more focused on what messages you have to pass to get to that final outcome in building your executive presence. And the more you start thinking like this and talking like this and delivering messages like this, the better you're going to be received, the more buy-in you're going to get, and it's just going to make it so much easier for you. If you want Hippie Mean, I actually go into this in a lot more depth on one of my LinkedIn learning courses called Storytelling to Influence Leadership and Decision Makers. If any of you guys are following me over on Instagram right now in this live, just comment story on the live right now, comment story, and I'll DM you both that course I was just talking about and all of my free nano courses that are highly practical and helpful as well. And if you're following me over right now on LinkedIn, I actually have all of my LinkedIn courses right there on my LinkedIn profile in the experience section. You just have to scroll down a little bit and you can access all of them, including the one I was just mentioning on storytelling to influence leadership and decision makers. And although that one isn't specifically focused on building executive presence, the way that we cover it in that course actually by default builds your executive presence from a communication standpoint. So you kind of get to kill two birds with one stone with that one. So I hope you enjoy it. If you mean, let me know once you take a listen to that. I think you'll really enjoy it. Okay, amazing questions. Let's come back to Paula over on LinkedIn. Thanks, Paula, for joining. So, Paula's question is, I have a new team member who is very quiet and shy. He is doing all the work, but is very reserved and has not integrated that well with the team yet, as he avoids social interactions and team building events. He participates, but doesn't really speak to people, so it has become hard to get to know him. How can I support him to become more comfortable, as it's important for his own progression, without necessarily pushing him in a way that he would feel uncomfortable? Since he is so quiet, it's also hard for me to know what he is working on and how he is progressing. Okay, perfect question, Paula. I love that you brought this forward today. So you have the right idea here, okay? Ideally, you want to frame the conversation with him, and there does need to be a conversation with him on this, around what's in it for him, but also why building his visibility in those moments is actually very helpful for his development goals. Because he might be making the mistake that a lot of professionals make that I see, which is just focusing on doing the work and keeping your head down and hoping that everything else is going to fall into place. And that just doesn't happen, unfortunately. And so he might be just a little bit naive to that or not realizing that this is actually working against him. So, as his manager, I would have a one on one conversation with him and frame it as follows. Okay. Let's say his name is Michael. Okay, so you could say, hey, Michael, thanks so much for taking the time to meet with me today. I'm really pleased with the work that you've been doing so far in the team and great to have you. I can see the level of commitment that you've been demonstrating, right? So you're really helping him feel good. You're coming from a place of positivity. And then what you want to do, Paul, is kind of shift into the opportunity that you see here with him, right? You could say something like, at the same time, I have noticed that you are a little bit more reserved when being in kind of our social gatherings or interactions where you have the chance to meet and interact with other members of the team and extended team. And those are actually really important moments to put yourself out there and build your visibility. Because as much as your work is great and we're building on that together, I also, as your leader, want people to know who you are, and not just through me, but so that they can get to know you on a one-on-one level. And that's really important for your own goals and progression because these individuals also have influence over that. And so, and what you can do here, Paula, if you feel like it's appropriate, is you can even draw the parallel back to you. So he doesn't feel uncomfortable about this. So you could say something like, I even used to feel like that when I first started in my role. I was just kind of focused on the work and head down. And I realized, similar to what my manager had told me at that point, that getting out there and building those connections would actually be even more valuable. And they were right. And it really changed a lot for me in terms of my growth path inside the company. And I definitely want to set you up well in that. And then that's where, Paula, you could end with getting a buy in from him. So you could say, maybe as a next step from here, would you feel comfortable being more present and active in those contexts? And I can definitely give you some pointers of how to do that so it feels very, easy and genuine for you without being forced in any way. And again, this is simply coming back because I have your best interest at heart and I want you to have that kind of visibility. Right. And then, like that, they will then share their stance and their viewpoint, but you've really laid it out to give him very clear context of why this matters. Right. That's going to come off very differently, Paula, than just saying, like, hey, like, I want you to show up more at these social gatherings. He's going to be like, okay, thanks. And then not really show up because there's no benefit for him. He doesn't see the what's in it for him clearly. Whereas if you frame it the way that I've just walked it through, very different, right? So hopefully you see that distinction, but I would definitely encourage having that conversation. And you can always have a tail end of that around, even in your working relationship with him, of having better clarity of what he's working on. That could just come down to your weekly statuses that you have, where you really empower him to come prepared to those statuses with updates for you of what he's working on, the progress he's making, and where he needs your input, right? And so that's something that can be really helpful for the both of you. Hopefully that helps, Paula, but that's a great question. Okay, let's see. I'm coming back over onto Instagram. I think we had another question from Vijay. How to convey to management that sometimes market doesn't support, even they're knowing they don't accept. Okay, I might need a little bit more context on that, but I'm thinking from what you're asking, how to convey to management that sometimes the market doesn't support, even when they're knowing they don't accept. So you might be suggesting that if, let's say, you're expected to do something and the market or market context is creating challenges and they know about it, but they're like, get it done anyways, that's where you have to probably give a little bit more context in terms of like a sense of reality, right? Because they might have goals for you that they're like, well, I don't care, just make it happen, or I want it to happen. But if there's things, Vijay, that are out of your control, what you want to do is shift to the things that are in your control and try to find a happy medium that gives you a common ground. So for instance, maybe you're going to frame it that, okay, the ideal direction we were going with was X, right? Given recent market shifts in Y that are happening, that's actually creating a lot of constraints on being able to deliver on this part of the project. That said, we are still able to control ABC, and that's what I'd like to focus on mostly, to be able to at least get to this. It might impact this other part of the project, and we can always come back to that at another time. I simply want to share this to manage expectations and make sure that you have the latest information of how we can approach that best given some of these constraints that we're facing. So like this, you're still showing ownership and you're still showing that you want this to work, but you're also not going to bang your head over things that are out of your control, like market conditions. It's more about focusing on, well, what can you control that will still drive the outcomes that you guys are working towards? And I would definitely recommend focusing on that. So hopefully that helps give you a little bit of clarity. Oh, and you're so welcome, Chad Merge. I'm glad that that was helpful for you. Go get them. You keep me posted. And again, for anyone here that is looking for more direct support, coaching to unlock these higher levels of growth and impact in your career, it doesn't have to be complicated. I love supporting you on that. Our team loves supporting you on that. And you could actually book a free clarity call with me and my team so we can get to know you better. It's a good moment of the year to do that. The new year is going to come before we know it. And I want you to be set up for so much success. You could just comment call on today's live if you're joining from Instagram, or even book the appointment directly from my LinkedIn profile if you're joining us from there. Okay, and Subhajit, I saw that you commented story on LinkedIn. So, in fact, that's actually for Instagram for them to be able to get the link to my LinkedIn learning courses. But since you're following me over on LinkedIn, just go right over to my profile, scroll down in my experience section, and you're going to see all the courses there that you can easily access. Okay, I hope you enjoy it. Okay, we have another question from Miriam from Instagram. How to rebuild confidence after a major setback, like owning my space, rebranding my character, unlearning the inferior personality, and replace it with more impactful personality. Ugh. How good is this question? There's a lot to unpack there. I'm not sure what kind of setback you're referring to specifically, but I will say this, okay? Setbacks are inevitable in our career. Often it's a lot of what we can learn from that versus letting it hurt your progression and hold you back. I would highly recommend, Miriam, whatever that setback was, is learn from what you want to do differently, okay? How did that setback impact the way that you show up? What would you do differently if you can go back? What are things that you now deem more important for you as you build your personal brand, as you build your character, as you build your relationships? Okay. But just know that you have the power to do that. I say this often, but when we have a setback, that can be really destabilizing and directly impact your confidence, which seems to be the case for you, Miriam, right? And we've all been there. I can definitely empathize as well, as have many of our clients in similar situations, okay? But the key is that you were burned once with this setback, but you don't want to be burned twice. And if you let the setback diminish your confidence and stand in your way, that's going to let you get burned twice. And we don't want that. And so often the proof to build back your confidence is in the pudding. What I mean by that is, outside of this particular setback, as major as it might feel for you, I guarantee there's things that happen beyond that moment of your career that actually absolutely build your confidence and show that you have the capabilities, you have the skills, you have the strengths, you have the achievements to show for it. You just have to kind of tap back into that. And so I would say, as a good starting point, Miriam, let's think about what is the biggest limiting belief that's coming up for you right now because of that setback. Just try to take a moment to really think about what that is for you. And in the same vein, let's now think about, why is that not true? Why is that actually at its core not true? And when you start doing this type of like counter rationalization exercise, you come to realize that so much of it is in our mind, that we're making it out to be worse. And when it comes to building your brand and building your character and working through building that aura and demeanor that you put out, you get to control that. You get to set the tone. You get to determine, is this going to hold you back, or are you going to just push through it? Are you just going to break through it? Right? And so focusing on what you learn from that opportunity and using it as tactical action steps of what you want to do differently now, while also using your past track record as something you can lean into that reinforces that you have everything that it takes, is a really good starting point of building that confidence. I know this is a big question, and honestly, Miriam, I would love to talk with you more if you're game for that, because we do a lot of confidence work with our clients. I can tell you it is the foundation of everything, and it's probably the biggest win beyond all of the tangible outcomes that they get. That's just like the common thread. When you have your confidence at that next level, the possibilities are endless for you. And I never want it to feel like you're standing in your own way. So feel free to book a call with us. Like I said, you could comment call. We can get that on the calendar. But this seems like a pretty important turning moment for you. And Building your brand in the way that you deserve and that is warranted and will get you the visibility and exposure and progression that you want is the best spot to be in. Please just know that this setback, as major as it might feel, is not going to define you. It's only going to define you if you let it define you. And so this is my invitation to you, Miriam, to not let it define you, to focus on what you can take action on and move through rather than feeling it as a major roadblock standing in your way. You get to decide, which is the fun part, okay? You get to change the course of your future and take action and take control. And you'll be really pleasantly surprised of what happens on the other side of that type of change. Let me know if you need any more help on that. It's a big question. So like I said, I think that's a good starting point, but would love to support you further on that. Okay, my gosh, we've gone through a lot of questions. We're just about at time. Let me see if there's any last ones that I missed. I think there were a few last ones here. One last one, I'll take it. It was from Chaitanya. Thank you so much. How to convince yourself to pursue a certain stream when you almost have no idea what's going to happen after that. I understand that happiness is important, but shouldn't money be a priority? The issue then gives rise to self-doubt, procrastination, and endless hours of overthinking. Doesn't help at all. Oh, yeah. I know. Where are all our overthinkers at? Maybe just let us know in the comments. Overthinking is a real thing. Yeah, it's an absolute real thing. And if any of you guys are also just looking for more, inspiration and motivation every week, please join my free Peak Performers newsletter. It is loaded with actionable, practical guidance and inspiration to get you in control of your career and unlock those higher levels of growth. If you're joining over on Instagram, just comment learn, Learn, and I'll send you the link to join our newsletter and over 27,000 readers with me every week. We publish it twice every week. If you're joining me over on LinkedIn, you can actually subscribe right from my LinkedIn profile once again. But it's a juicy one. And we've had past editions on how to overcome overthinking and all of that. But let me maybe round off for today's live on answering your question, Chaitanya. So you're talking about how to convince yourself to pursue a stream when you almost have no idea what's going to happen after, and the importance of money, that should be a priority. Now, don't get me wrong. Money is important. We need money, right? To live, to survive. And it is for many people a top priority and motivator in your career. Should it be the main one? I don't believe so. I don't believe so, because when you are building your goals and vision of your career only on extrinsic motivators like money, titles, status, that can feel very, very aggravating when you're constantly chasing more. You're constantly going to feel like it's never enough and you want more. That said, it should still be part of your motivators because they're important. They're important in building your career the way that you want. But I would much rather, Chaitanya, that you also reflect on what are your values and intrinsic motivators that are much more in line with who you are and the way you want to grow, right? What are those driving needs for you that you're like, I want to feel fulfilled. I want to feel purpose. I want to be challenged. I want transparency. I want collaboration. Those things are so important for me. And whatever workplace I'm a part of, I need to feel that. And if you feel that, which are more of those intrinsic motivators, and then you layer on the money and some of those extrinsic motivators, well, now you've got a winning recipe for success because it's not overly weighted one way or the other. There's a really nice balance, but you're reflecting on what that is for you. And it's going to be different for you versus someone else. And you need to do that introspection to really identify that. Right. And so I get what you're saying, that this can bring on self-doubt or procrastination, or like you're just constantly thinking. And so my biggest guidance here, beyond really reflecting on those motivators for yourself, is think about your short to midterm goals. It doesn't even have to be that long term. But ultimately, your next step, you want it to almost serve like a springboard to that next step after that, and so on and so forth. So you don't have to have it all figured out right now. But I simply want to make sure that where you're going right now is still something that's very exciting and motivating for you, and that has a clear path forward. And to help you with the third piece that I want to share is network. Okay. Network with people who are already in the stream or in the path that you're considering. This is the best way to overcome overthinking when it comes to pursuing a path forward in your career. Because instead of just staying in your own head, being like, well, what if I do this? Or what if I don't like that? Or what if it's not what I expect? Go to the source. Go to the people who are actually doing the thing or have done the thing or are a few steps in that thing. So you can actually learn from them and assess for yourself, is this what you want? How does that align with your intrinsic and extrinsic motivators? Does that line up? Does that feel good to you? And now suddenly the self doubt is gone. The procrastination is gone because you've taken action. And the overthinking is actually replaced with informed decision making. So definitely lean into that, Chaitanya. And of course, if you need any further support, don't hesitate to reach out. Send me a DM, guys. I'm always available, okay, through DMs. Send me a DM right there on Instagram, on LinkedIn, or again, you can go ahead and book a clarity call with our team. We'd love to speak with you. Just comment call on Instagram or go ahead and book your appointment right from my LinkedIn profile. I want to thank you guys so much for joining us today. We got some incredible questions coming through. If I didn't get to one of them, please don't hesitate to let me know. Shoot me a DM. Like I said, I'll do my very best to get back to you with those answers as soon as possible. As a quick reminder, we are going to take a 2-week pause for our weekly lives just due to some travel I have on my end. But we'll be back here mid-December. Make sure that we're closing out this year strong. If there are any questions or things that have come up for you, please don't hesitate to reach out. Again, I think a great starting point is getting on my newsletter. It's amazing, published twice every week, I should say. It's called Peak Performers. Just comment learn on our Instagram live and I'll send you the details. Or if you're on LinkedIn, just go ahead on my profile, scroll down a little bit in my featured section and you can subscribe right there. We have an amazing issue coming out on Monday on how to ask for recommendations with some very practical templates that work like a charm every single time. Can't wait for you guys to see that. And again, thank you for taking time with me on this Thanksgiving weekend. For all of you celebrating, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope you have a restful time with your loved ones. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you for letting me and my team into your lives, in supporting you in your careers, in helping you bring out your best self. Thank you for showing up for you and being here because you are already miles ahead of those who are not. So, creating a little bit of FOMO. But honestly, just really grateful for each and every one of you. And if you know of anyone who needs to be here and isn't here with us, please spread the word. We are just about helping you bring out your best and unlock higher levels of growth and impact in your career, which is the best feeling because that's what you deserve. So thank you everyone so much for being here, and we'll speak really soon. Have a good weekend. Bye.